All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you got some good gratitudes and intentions written down. I saw a couple that were thrown in the chat box here. So, thank you to Barbara and Rick for throwing some of those in there. All right. Well, hey, here's what we're going to do this morning is I've got a few people here in the training room with me, and I was asking them what I should talk about. And Rick said, you should talk about how to make a cherry pie. And I was like, okay. So, I guess maybe we'll talk a little bit about a recipe, I guess, maybe today, but not necessarily about making a cherry pie. So here's what I want to talk about to you today. So essentially it's this. So I'm going to give you kind of the theme of what I'm going to talk about today so that you can write this down, because this is a principle that if you will use it in your life, it will make a difference in what it is you are trying to accomplish and how you go about what it is you are doing. And it is this: if what you are doing is not working, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work. So if what you are doing is not working for you, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work. Going and taking classes on what doesn't work. Going and getting a master's degree in what doesn't work. So if what you are doing is not working for you, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work. Okay, so that's kind of the theme of what I'm going to talk about today. So as we go through and talk about some of these things, pay attention to, are things working for you? Because if they are, that is awesome. Keep doing it. But if it's not, then you need to stop and say, okay, if what I am doing is not working, then doing more and getting better at that is not going to work. Now, an example of that would be that we're going to talk about today is prospecting. If you are making phone calls and not getting appointments, you have got to change what you're saying. So think of it this way. If we want to change the outcomes that we are looking for in our life, the thing that we have to change is our approach. So we have to back up and change our approach first. If your approach is not correct, that is what's going to govern the outcome that you are getting. So keep that in mind, that as you look at things and as you look at your life in terms of your health, your relationships, and your real estate business, look at the results that you are getting and then ask yourself, is that the results that I want to be having? And if it is, great. But if it's not, then you need to back up to, what is it in my approach, how I'm approaching my health, how I'm approaching my relationships, or how I'm approaching my business? What is it in how I'm approaching them that is not working for me? And how do I change that? Because if what you're doing is not working, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work. You got to make a change. All right. So with that, where I had this thought come from was, I was out running the other day, and I'm a little bit weird when I run, meaning most of the time when people go out and run, they will put on music and they'll have some type of hardcore or something to kind of keep them pumped up and going while they're running. Well, I don't do that. I instead actually will put on either an Earl Nightingale, I've got Jim Rohn, or I've got some other motivational type of thing that I'm usually listening to while I'm running. And what's fascinating to me is I just have this, and I don't know that there's any scientific proof to this, but there are certain things that when I talk about them or think about something that a Jim Rohn has said or an Earl Nightingale has said, I could tell you exactly where I was on my run when I was listening to that. And so I just feel like if you're engaged in exercising and listening to these things, it seems to sink in a little bit better, at least for me anyway. And I don't know about for you or not. I've shared that with a few people and they've said, well, I'm going to try that. And then they come back to me later on. They're like, yeah, no, I got to listen to music. I can't do it. So I don't know if it'll work for you or not, but for me, so I was out running the other day and I'm listening to Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field. And in that talk that he's doing here and Lead the Field, he starts talking about a guy by the name of Ivy Lee. Ivy Lee was like the publicist, I guess is how you would think of it back in their day, for the Rockefellers. But Ivy Lee was in talking to this CEO of a company. And as the CEO of this company is talking to Ivy Lee is telling him, he's there to share with him some ideas. And as he starts to share these ideas, this CEO says to Ivy Lee, look, I don't need more ideas. If we would just do the stuff that we know, now stop and think about how this could apply for you. We don't need new ideas. If we would just do the things that we already know we should be doing, we would be successful. What we need to do is to figure out a way for us to be able to do those things that we know we should be doing. Well, Ivy Lee said, well, I'll give you an idea, and I'm going to share this idea with you. This is what Ivy Lee said. I'm going to share this idea with you, and if you will implement it in your business, it will make all the difference. And he said, and here's the deal. You use this idea for the next 6 weeks, and at the end of the 6 weeks, then you can go ahead and just send me a check for whatever you feel like this idea was worth to you. And so what happened is he said this. He said, every day, write down the 6 most important things that you need to get done today. So just stop and write down the 6 most important things that you need to do. Then what you want to do is on that day, start with number 1 and stick with number 1 until you have it accomplished. And once you've accomplished number 1, then go to number 2 and so on, all through the 6 items. In the event you don't get through those 6 items, then you can always just carry it over to the next day. But on the next day, start with what is the most important thing you need to get done and stick with that until you get it done. Well, Ivy Lee left, and this CEO then implemented that into his business. And 6 weeks later, he sent to Ivy Lee a check for $25,000. Now, if you think about back in that time frame, that would be probably the equivalent to somebody sending, and I don't know what the conversion is on this, but it would probably be like somebody sending $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 to you for, hey, for this sharing this one idea. And the CEO said it made the biggest impact in the business and in his life than anything he had ever been shared, is just to put 6 things down, start with number 1 and stick with it till you get there. All right, well, now what does that have to do with us? Well, what is the number 1 thing that we should have on our list every single day as an agent? Now, hopefully what you just said in your own mind is set an appointment. See, I think the number 1 thing that we need to do in this business, in fact, I mentioned that Ryan got his first listing. Well, he was saying, hey, this is, we do a great job of talking about how to go get the business, but now I got it. Now what do? I don't know what to do next, kind of a thing. Well, the reason we do that, the reason we spend so much time talking about going and getting the business is once you get the business, and I didn't say this to Ryan, so I guess I'm saying it now to you, but once you get the business, you're going to figure out what to do next. It is kind of where it comes from. And that doesn't mean to say like, maybe we shouldn't do a little better on, okay, here's your next step. And I'm guilty, I guess, of that because I'm the training director for the company. So I better take it to heart. But here's the thing. The reason that we spend so much time talking about going and setting appointments is because until you get an appointment, nothing else really matters. It doesn't matter how you go fill out the paperwork or any of those things until you get the appointment first. And so we spend so much time on that. So my challenge to you today, one of the things that I'm recommending for you is make sure that if you put together a list of 6 things, that the first thing on your list is set an appointment. Because until you set an appointment, nothing else matters. We have to have that appointment first. So now, let me tie this to what I said in the beginning. If what you are doing isn't working, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work doesn't work. See, the reason that I like the idea of you just saying, look, I will not go home until I set an appointment today is because of it's tied to what I was said in the beginning. If what you're doing isn't working, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work. See, if you have a commitment to do number 1, so if you had 6 things down and the number 1 thing is set an appointment today, and you continue to do it the way you have done it in the past when you have not set an appointment, guess what you will do on that day? Not set an appointment. See, if what you're doing doesn't work, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work. You got to change your approach. and it is contained within your approach. Now, here's part of why I bring this up is one of the things, and I've mentioned this a lot, but one of the things that I enjoy doing is listening to agents make their prospecting phone calls. And while listening to them making their phone calls, then coaching them on do it this way, say it that way, change this or change that, to try to help them get more appointments. Well, and I have mentioned a few times that from time to time, I will then jump on the phone and start to make some calls. Well, what happened is this week I was doing that. I was listening to an agent make some calls, and actually this agent mentioned then that it was his birthday. And I said, you know what? My birthday present for you today is I'm going to get on and make some phone calls, and I'm going to try to set an appointment for you for your birthday. So I got on the phone and I started making some phone calls. And as I was making the phone calls, I felt like I was doing pretty good. I wasn't getting anywhere with it as far as like I hadn't set an appointment yet. But here's where this is fascinating, is what happened is after a while, I all of a sudden in making a phone call, I got on a call, and I got on this phone call, and the guy said, you know, due to COVID, I've just decided to wait. And I don't know what it was within me, but something within me just kind of gave up. And I just was like, all right, well, is it okay if I just stay in touch with you, and I'll get back with you in a few months and see how things are going and see what I can do to help you? And he's like, yeah, that's great. And I hung up the phone, and Rick Bentley happened to be standing right there. And he said, dude, why did you give up? And it like flipped a switch. It was almost like he walked over and just punched me in the face or something, because it kind of like woke me up to realize sometimes what happens as we are prospecting is we get so caught up, or what I like to call it, that I've heard it called before, I guess, is we get this call fatigue that goes on. Meaning we've been making the calls, and after a while we kind of get this little bit of like, ugh, I'm kind of tired of making these calls. And that's what happened to me. And as a result of it, though, I gave up on a scenario where really I probably could have set an appointment with this guy if I would have just asked a few more questions and done a few more things with him. I probably could have gotten him to agree to an appointment and to meet with me. So here's the other thing that I want for you. So just sharing some ideas with you in terms of prospecting. And that is, have somebody else that is there with you while you are doing your prospecting for exactly the reason, and hold each other accountable to making sure they're asking for appointments. See, I believe that what you need to be doing is helping each other out on that. And meaning, if you hear the person that's standing next to you making calls and you feel like they should be asking for an appointment, have written down on a piece of paper or something what time, which time, how soon, when, and where. Because I've shared with you before, I'm not going to get into it today, but there's only 5 ways in the English language. What time, which time, how soon, when, and where. So make sure that you are helping each other. If you feel like they should be asking for an appointment, go over and tap them and say, you know, hold up the piece of paper that says what time, which time, how soon, and where, because it will help them. Hold each other accountable. When you get off of the phone, if you feel like you did a great job and they say to you, what did you do? Because see, here's what's interesting to me is part of, for me, when I'm making calls in front of an agent, is I know I got to be on my game. I've got to make sure that I am showing them that I am going to ask for the appointment. And in fact, one of the other things that you should be doing in terms of this, again, sharing with you some ideas to improve your prospecting, to change a few things, is making sure that you are asking for the appointment more than one time. See, you need to be asking, typically it's going to take 3 to 5 times of you asking for an appointment before they're going to say yes. See, I know some agents, I remember Jason Carlson saying to me that he would keep a stack of either quarters or pennies, I don't remember what it was, sitting on his desk. He would have 5. And every time he would ask for an appointment, he would slide it over. Well, that's a great way of doing it. Have a system in place for yourself that visually you can see. Put a tick mark. Do something that is a visual for you to be able to see how many times you have asked for the appointment. Because as you do that, that's where we're going to change. See, if what you're doing doesn't work, doing more and getting better at what doesn't work doesn't work. And if you're not asking for appointments, doing more and getting better at not asking for an appointment is not going to get you appointments. You've got to make sure that you are asking for the business. Now, here's where I wanted to hit on real quick with this. And I've shared this before, and I'm going to share it many, many more times again, because there's three things that need to take place every time you are prospecting and you are on the phone. The first is we have to connect. You have got to connect with the people. And the way that you're going to do that is through asking questions, is you've got to make sure that you are asking questions of people. Now, in terms of this, that just reminded me as I say that of a quick story that I want to just share with you in terms of asking questions. So my wife goes to classic skating, which is a little skating rink kind of a thing. I don't know. They don't hardly skate there anymore. But anyway, it's close by. My wife is there with my son. Well, I call her later in the day and I said to her, hey, what are you doing? And she said, oh, we're just out looking to buy a guinea pig. And I was like, what? You're looking to buy a guinea pig? What are you talking about? Now, here's the thing. My wife is so against animals. We have a dog, but she's like, when that dog dies, and she said, I hope she doesn't die, but when she dies, we are never having an animal again. Well, I call my wife up on the phone and I'm like, what are you doing buying a guinea pig? See, and I got so lost in it that I forgot to really ask follow-up questions. So like I get home and I'm like, where's the guinea pig? And she's like, we weren't buying a guinea pig for us. It was for my niece that she was looking to buy a guinea pig. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes a little bit more sense. See, so we got to ask more questions. If we want to get a connection with people, you've got to be asking more questions that will allow you to connect with them and to have them feel comfortable with you, because until they feel that comfort, they are not going to be willing to talk to you further on the phone. The next piece of this, in terms of making sure that you are connecting, is repeat and affirm. Make sure you're repeating and affirming with some sincerity, or that it actually feels real. Too many times people will repeat and affirm, but it doesn't feel real to the person. You've got to have it be like you are really interested in what they are saying. And then the second thing then is we have got to create value. See, if you are wanting to set more appointments, and again, if what you're doing isn't working, so that's what I'm saying. If you are connecting and creating value, you're probably getting appointments. If you are not doing that, this is what you've got to change. So creating value, how do we create value? Well, we're going to create value through the use of sound bites, sharing with them, hey, I had somebody who was in the exact scenario as you were, and this is what we did. Here's the thing. Going back again to this guy that I talked to that on the phone that said, I'm waiting till after COVID to buy a house. Perfect example of that is of this using soundbite would have been like, you know what? I've had a few clients who have felt the exact same way, but you know what? Interest rates are at such historic lows right now. We were able to go get them more house because as soon as we're past COVID, I have a feeling the interest rates are going to be going back up as well. And so waiting too long, trying to time the market at the bottom is really not a good strategy. So we've got to create value by having sound bites. And then here's the other way that you create value. Give people hope. Make sure that you are telling them, look, I'm going to be able to help you do this. See, people are looking for someone to lead them through the process. They want someone to let them know what you're wanting to accomplish, you can do, and I'm going to be able to help you do it. And if you will do that, you're going to be able to help them get to that process. They're going to then see the value of working with you and be excited to work with you, because every other agent's out there saying, well, there's no inventory right now. Well, great. I've got a solution for no inventory. I'm going to go look up homes that expired and go knock on their door. Or I'm going to go look on properties that sold 5, 10 years ago that match their criteria and go knock on their door and ask them, I've got somebody who would like to buy your home. See, this is how we can come up with ways of double ending a deal rather than just, well, there's no properties on the market. See, give people some hope that you're going to be able to help them will create value in working with you. And then finally, which we've already talked about, is, but you have to close. You have got to be asking for the appointment. And if you are not asking 3 to 5 times, in my mind, you didn't ask for an appointment. Asking one time, you're going to always get the reflex no. See, it's no different than you walking into a furniture store, a department store, and they say to you, can I help you? First thing out of your mouth is, nope, just looking. Guess what they're going to say to you when you ask for the appointment? No, that's okay. So you've got to be asking 3 to 5 times if you are wanting to set the appointment. Well, guys, I know I talk a lot about, and it seems like probably every message I've got is about setting more appointments, but it's what I just said at the beginning of, like, nothing else matters. If you don't have appointments, you don't need all the other tools. You don't need all the other things. It all boils down to, you've got to be setting appointments. And as Ivy Lee said, work on the number one most important thing every day until you accomplish it. Well, for us in this business, that number one thing is, I have to set an appointment. And as I was saying, if you will commit to, I will not go home until I set an appointment today, if you'll commit to that, you are automatically going to change something in your approach if it's not working. See, that's what I found when I committed to, I will not go home until I set an appointment. What I found is that all of a sudden my approach changed. Because if you get off the phone and you don't get an appointment, you go, okay, well, I'm not doing that way again. That didn't work. Now, again, I always tell my son in baseball, you can't judge your swing off of one swing. So you can't judge if you're saying the right things off one phone call. But if you start to notice you've got patterns, and every one of us has patterns that we are following, and if that pattern is not leading you to an appointment, you probably need to change the pattern. Take a look at the script you're using and fine tune what you're saying that will get you more appointments. Because at the end of the day, if you will set one appointment a day, you're going to have everything you want in life. You will accomplish, and you'll be able to take your family on the trips and do those things that you want to do if you will do just one thing, and that is set one new appointment every single day that you work. All right. Well, what are you going to do as a result of it? So write down, what are you going to change? What in your approach needs to change? Because if what you're doing isn't getting you what you want, doing more and getting better at it is not going to work. You got to change something. So what will you change today that is going to allow you to do more business and be able to create the income that'll allow you to do the things you really want to do in this life? That's my challenge for you. Thanks for being with me.